from 4 years back, but I think it's important for everyone to know what went on even way back there in 2014.
Why have you not heard anything about what I'm going to show you? So in February 2014, this becomes the new president, total upheaval. They have no money, they're completely broke. And here comes the United States of America. In March of that year, President Obama says, we're from the United States government and we're going to help. So he decides, you know who you need? You know who you could need, because you're very corrupt. This is a very corrupt place, and it is. And we're going to help you, and we got lots of money. We can print it, whatever we want. So we got lots of money, but we've done this before, and we did it with TARP, and we spent all kinds of money. But we wanted to make sure that all of that reinvestment in America was clean, no corruption. And so we put Joe Biden in charge. So Joe
Great idea.
is going to be the new point man in Ukraine. Okay, so then Joe, in March of that year, a month later, he has a quick little meeting because his son just started a new business. I love this. He started a new business, and he was going to be an investment banker, right? Investment guy. And they were going to do all this investment funds, and it was going to be fantastic. He has no experience in that. He partners with John Kerry's son, and this guy, Devon Archer. And this guy is
Yeah, we've all seen him in the news, haven't we?
He's his financial guy. I spent 30 minutes at a chalkboard just talking about this scandal. You can find it at YouTube. You can find it at blazetv.com. It is Joe Biden's scandal in Ukraine, okay? So he meets with Devon Archer. I'm going to give you this real quick. He meets with Devon Archer. Nothing to do with Ukraine. And then in April, he flies to Ukraine. And guess what? So does he. And in May of that year, he is made a board member of a gas company called Burisma. Here's where it gets good. Because this poor country is so corrupt, Barack Obama says, guys, we want to give you some money. We want to give you some money. But I gotta tell you, we're gonna have to watch over it. Now, let me show you how much money we're talking about. Riding in on the white horse to save the day with all kinds of U.S. aid to Ukraine, it included $1 billion sovereign loan guarantee, $320 million in general assistance, $118 million in equipment training for their security forces, $20 million for new law enforcement reform, and a fleet of advisors in banking and politics and energy and media and human rights. And then, because they're so corrupt, we mandate to this corrupt country that they start a national Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, because we can't trust the guys in the masks. A National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine. It's fantastic. And you know who their partner is? Us, of course. It's tapped to be the first director of the Bureau is this guy, Artem, how do you say his name? Sitnik, okay? He's the first director. And what's great is because he is now in charge of anti-corruption, he now has a direct line to the administration to talk about anything the Ukrainians might dig up, okay? Now, we get here. We get now to this place where we are dumping all of that aid in, but we're watching over it because we're responsible. And we were becoming a giant piggy bank. But we made some mistakes early on. Well, first, do you remember Burisma? Burisma was run by this guy. This guy is so corrupt that he couldn't come to the United States. He was never to be granted a visa to come to the United States because he's an oligarch. He not only runs Burisma, but he also has a bank. Whoa! So this guy gets the money for Burisma, $1.8 billion. It's put into his bank. I mean, who wouldn't put $1.8 billion in an oligarch, corrupt guy who can't come into the United States? He's so corrupt. Who wouldn't put it in that, right? Oopsie. It's like Monopoly. Bank made a banking error, lost $1.8 billion. Where did it go? Well, he certainly didn't have anything to do with it. This is a big day, June 15th. By late 2015, we are the Ukrainian piggy bank. We are giving them all kinds of money, but we're also helping them with advisors. Oh, yes, we are. We are helping them with Greg Craig, the former Obama White House counsel. We have Tad Devine, chief strategist for Bernie Sanders, and Tony Podesta, brother to John Podesta. We also have Mark Penn, the chief strategist for Hillary Clinton. John Alazone, Obama campaign pollster. Another guy, John, the Obama campaign lead pollster. Oh my gosh, this is fantastic. That the climate in Ukraine is all corrupt at this point. This is the climate that the Russia investigation begins in. Not the official investigation led by Robert Mueller. No. The unofficial investigation launched by none other than the DNC. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Back in the US in late 2015, while all of this is going on, the Democratic Party decides they're going to hire Alexandra Chalupa. The Obama White House summoned some people. In fact, what they did is the White House, Obama gave a personal information to the prosecutors in Ukraine. Remember the National Anti-Corruption Bureau? Those guys and like their attorney general, their regular police force, if you will, the national police force, was summoned to the White House. And Obama said, what we're going to do is we're going to build cooperation with Ukraine. Your Anti-Corruption Bureau, which is fantastic, headed by this guy. Fantastic. Now, according to a political official at the Ukrainian embassy, the meeting immediately turned to two main issues: Biden and his son, and a case tied to Paul Manafort. You can probably guess which one they didn't investigate and which one they did. The deputy head of the Ukrainian Prosecutor General's office said that upon returning back home from the Obama administration meeting in Washington, there was, quote, a clear message about helping the Americans. Regarding the Manafort case, he said, and I quote, yeah, there was a lot of talking about needing help, and then the ledger just appeared in public. What ledger? What are you talking about? I'll get back to that in a second. So, he brings him to the White House. They're concentrating on Paul Manafort. And remember, the White House also, according to sources that were there for this meeting, they also said they were being pressured not to look in to this. Well, remember, whoopsie, we're not talking about Joe Biden. I don't care what he did. What happened to my and your $1.8 billion? Why did you put it into this bank run by this guy who was totally corrupt, and then who said, he's not so bad, let him into America? But now you've heard the story. Biden, forced the removal of Ukraine's general prosecutor. His name was Viktor Shokin. Okay? Bad guy. Everybody says bad guy. I don't know. He seems like a bad guy, and also some good things he was doing. But he was investigating a Ukrainian company that Biden's son was involved with. We all heard both sides of the story. Biden claimed what he did was purely based on Shokin's corrupt conduct and nothing to do with this. Except, one thing that bothers me is this. This meeting. This meeting where you sent the people back home and they all said, you didn't want us to look into that. And then Mr. Joe Biden comes in and he gets this guy fired. This is something that's probably worth looking at. This is a document of the sworn statement of the guy Joe Biden got fired that was recently obtained by the investigative journalist John Solomon. John Solomon is an award-winning investigative journalist that for 30 years worked for the Associated Press, the Washington Post, and the New York Times. He was fine then. He's outed people on both sides of the aisle. But all of a sudden, he's a conspiracy kook. This statement was made in a separate court case involving another Ukrainian citizen. We'll get to that. But here's what Shokin states. He said when he was fired, there had been no complaints about his work, and that Biden never specifically accused him of any criminal offenses. He then goes to say on the record in a sworn court statement, and I want to quote the paragraph, "The truth is that I was forced out because I was leading a wide-ranging corruption probe into Burisma Holdings, a natural gas firm active in Ukraine, and Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was a member of the board of directors. I assume Burisma, which was connected with gas extraction, had the support of the Vice President Joe Biden because his son was on the board of directors," end quote. Ukraine. Why? Because we were dumping money. And it was Joe Biden and Barack Obama that were the sugar daddies. Shokin, their equivalent of our attorney general, said that Obama was, quote, telling the heads of the Ukrainian law enforcement system how to investigate and whom to investigate. And Shokin had another unforgivable sin on his record because he launched an investigation. This is just comedic at this point. He was investigating the Anti-Corruption Action Center, and it's spelled CENTRE, so you know it's credible. It's got the fancy foreign center. Something alleged that the NGO might have improperly diverted or even, dare I say it, embezzled millions of dollars. So wouldn't we really want to know? Because it's our money. Wouldn't this be an unforgivable sin to Obama and Biden? Now, I've never heard of the International Renaissance Foundation before, so we had to do some investigating. Guess who the other main donor is of this group? You got it. George Soros. Spooky dude.
Upstanding guy.
You can't do it. Apparently in America or the world, you cannot do a chalkboard without this guy showing up. In March 2016, things began to change. Here's what happened. Oh, by the way, in March 2016, he gets fired and oops, bank made another accounting error. We lost $2.2 million and $1.8 billion in an IMF loan that you and I guaranteed. Where did I put the other 1.8? In March 2016, the good guy takes over. Now, who is the good guy? Lutsenko. He takes this guy's place. And everybody in the Obama administration says, he's great. He's the best. This guy bad. This guy good. So he gets in. But wait, there's more. Also, the same month, what happens? But Paul Manafort, like honestly a gift from the gods for the Democrat, decides, you know what? I'm going to go into the Trump team. Bing, bing, bing. They've been setting him up. Did this happen? So he goes in the Trump team. Well, they're excited about this, of course. And Chalupa, remember, she's on the Democratic payroll. She starts working directly with the Ukrainian embassy in the U.S. She's working with the staff to raise alarm bells regarding Manafort to the Ukrainian president. She said the embassy, quote, worked directly with reporters researching Trump, Manafort, and Russia to point them, quoting, in the right directions. This is the Ukrainian embassy here in the United States working with a DNC operative. Does any of this sound like what they accused Donald Trump of doing? Chalupa and the DNC deny this, but the Ukrainian embassy political officer who worked there at the time stated that the Ukrainians were indeed working with Chalupa. Here's the quote. They were coordinating an investigation with the Hillary team on Paul Manafort with Alexandra Chalupa. Now, remember, phone a friend anytime you need help. They're all there. Is this that big of a stretch? Especially when you find this, which was released on WikiLeaks, between Chalupa and the former DNC communications director, Luis Miranda. In this email, she just checks in and she reports, she says, a lot more coming down the pipe. She went to the Open World Society Forum. I don't want to read this to you exactly. She went to Library of Congress specifically to talk about Manafort. And she says, they put me on the program, I'm quoting, to speak specifically about Paul Manafort. And I invited Mike Isikoff, who I've been working with for the past few weeks, and connected him with the Ukrainians. Now, gosh, that's sad. Except they don't have things like this. I invited Isikoff. I've been working with him the past few weeks, connected him to the Ukrainians. More offline tomorrow, since there is a big Trump component you and Lauren need to be aware of that will hit in the next few weeks. Something I'm working on you should be aware of. Now, what's weird is Isikoff wrote a story for Yahoo News and detailed some of the things in the Steele dossier. The Steele dossier, the leaked dossier, went to Isikoff. And then what's weird is it also kind of showed up with the FBI, and it was used as corroborating evidence to justify a FISA warrant for Carter Page, so we could find out about Donald Trump. Because remember, this is released, and the Democrats at the same time they hire Fusion GPS to get to the bottom of Donald Trump. 1 month after the DNC hired Fusion GPS to work on the dossier. Oh, and by the way, Mrs. Orr was working here, and she's married to Bruce Orr, who's with the DOJ, and the little pillow talk. She accidentally said a few things that were coming out of Fusion GPS, which happened to come right out of the DNC with Chalupa. And so now he's coming around and going, wait a minute here. Where is the media on this? Where are they? Where were they? Where are they now? The DNC was colluding with the Ukrainian embassy to influence our election, but nobody cares. Do you see why the president might be a little testy? So here we are, the Isikoff member. She's working with the Ukrainian embassy and the press. They got Fusion GPS. They're starting to move it into the DNC or to the DOJ. And then the FBI again says, you know what? You guys are so fantastic. I love your work you're doing, or not doing, as the case may be. We want an official partnership with you. We want, wedding bells were heard, the FBI and the Anti-Corruption Bureau in Ukraine to work hand in hand. Now, holy cow, now they can share any information back and forth. It's kind of like that wall that we had for 9/11. That wall came down, and now if the Ukrainians had something, get right to them. Wall came down, and now if the Ukrainians had something, get right to them. Okay, so that brings me now to the Black Ledger. Remember we were talking about the Black Ledger here, Trump opposition research, and she's like, hey, I got a guy named Paul Manafort. Forget Tony Podesta and Tad Devine and all of that. I got this guy, Manafort. So the Black Ledger on Manafort was released. And you're going to love this. Now, only in the end will you understand. still at the beginning of this story, but it has a great ending. So the Black Ledger was released by Ukraine's Anti-Corruption Bureau, both occurring directly in the heat of the U.S. election. Now, the Black Ledger refers to financial records that were kept by this guy, the former Ukrainian president. He used this for the under-table payments. Now, remember, he's working to get him reelected, and so are these two. So another person that is involved in this is a Ukrainian parliamentary member named Lashenko, okay? And he is also working, remember the guy who's running the anti-corruption thing? These are the two that put the Black Ledger together, all right? These two signed a memorandum of understanding with the FBI just months prior. They jointly released pages in the letter that showed illegal payments were given to Paul Manafort. Now, this is kind of crazy because on the same day that these guys are nailed, just within days, if not hours, of this coming out, and Paul Manafort going to jail, dude, Tony Podesta, who was doing the same thing with the same people in the Black Ledger, he just decides to close his shop. This is one of the biggest firms for lobbying in the United States of America. He got involved. This date was pretty important, but this date in November changed everything. This is the second most in this timeline, the day Trump wins elections, because nobody thought that was going to happen. These people had all played their hand that Hillary Clinton was going to win. Now Trump wins. Uh-oh. What do we do? Well, I'll show you what they did. In July of 2017, 2 years ago, the media had the opportunity to begin looking into democratic corruption in Ukraine when the story was dropped directly at their feet.
Yeah, mainstream media said nothing.
Sanders, she said during an off-camera briefing on July 12th, 2017, these words. Listen.
I think if there's been any evidence of collusion in 2016 that's come out at all or been discussed that's actually happened, it would be between the DNC and the Ukrainian government. I don't often quote the New York Times, but even one of their reporters tweeted earlier today that widest example provides evidence of collusion. Quote, cooperation was between DNC officials and officials from the Ukrainian government, not just some associate. Ukrainian actions to coordinate with the DNC was actually successful, unlike anything shown by Don Jr.'s emails. Information passed to the DNC from the Ukrainian government directly targeted members of the Trump campaign in an attempt to undermine it. And that was just Ukraine.
Okay. So the incoming White House press secretary alleges that the DNC was colluding with the government of Ukraine to help Hillary. Oh. So the guy who's in charge of the anti-corruption, they caught him on tape talking about how he'd like to. Well, let me play it for you. Now, this is the first time, strange because it's been out in the newspapers in Ukraine, this is the first time that we know of that this has been translated by anyone in the media in English. I just want you to listen. Now, the speaker you're going to hear is Director Sitnik, and this is what he said. Listen. Clinton Foundation.
Чисто у нее внутренние питания доминируют над зовнішнім. А Хіларі це как бы своїх політиків, що вони гегемонія Америки в світі. Для нас как бы це так лучше. А американці лучше. Це дуже хорошо. Може, потрібно дати монопольно, якого посадили. Монопольний був збирати країни, це виборчого штабу Трампа. Я тоді це остановився, тому що за те, що воно початку вважає, посадили там,
Oh, wow.
Трампа барабан, тому що система робоча чітко. І коли